process. Kansas has a very similar informed consent process with the same type of language and the same gestational views, and I don't want to say that it's the same, but I would say it's very similar, if not stronger.
So this bill is making it to where if they send them to Kansas, they would have to follow the same procedures as if they sent them to
They
St.
would be
Louis.
doing duplicate procedures. So they would have to complete the informed consent process before the referral could be even made.
In
And-
Missouri, then they would have to follow the Kansas law once they got there.
Correct.
Okay.
So they
Thank
would
you,
be,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Witt. Representative Morris, proceed.
To ask a question, please. In healthcare, in different types of procedures, it seems to me that if we live in Missouri, most of the time we're going to do those procedures in Missouri. So why is a lot of Missouri people going to Kansas?
I think it's the Kansas City metro area. Kansas City is a metropolitan area that is on the border of 2 states. It's not unique, but there are a few states in the country. I don't know, I've gone to some out of state and I say, you're from Kansas City. I say, yeah, I'm from Missouri. And they're like, oh, but you're in Kansas. No, it's Kansas City, but I'm from Missouri. So I live in Kansas City, but I may go to a dentist in Shawnee Mission. Like, it may be easier for me to go across the state line to see a doctor that I prefer, or to go get healthcare procedures that just happen to be over the state line. But I would venture to say that there are plenty of people in Missouri who go over to Kansas for medical service, and vice versa. People in Kansas who come over to Missouri for medical services.
Is there just one clinic, or is there more clinics in Kansas than we have in Missouri, since we have one?
There are actually more, as far as Planned Parenthood is concerned, there is Comprehensive Health Center in Overland Park, and then there's also a abortion provider in Wichita, but I believe for various reasons, they are suspending services for right now. And there are a few individual providers that do abortion as well.
So you
in
think it's
Wichita.
just because of location, not because of regulations or unregulations or non-regulations? It's because of location, and it's mostly just people in the Kansas City area going to Kansas. It's probably not people in northern Missouri or Midwest Missouri going to Kansas.
Sure. I'll say, I don't want to speak for everybody, but as far as who would be referred over there, or who might go over there, I think it's going to depend on the individual person, and they're going to look to say, okay, there's an abortion provider in Overland Park, Kansas, or that's 2 hours away, or there's one in St. Louis that's 6 hours away. And so the managing childcare, work, all of those things, I think there are many things that go into a woman's decision, and the location is one of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Representative Neely.
Inquiry, please.
Proceed.
Have you ever read an inspection report that's done by the Department of Health and Social Services?
Yes.
Do you have one available? I'd like to see the ones, if it be possible, that was done in the fall of this past year, if they've been around to do their inspection.
Yeah, they've actually been around, and the last time we were inspected was, I believe, January, which we received 800%.
January, and the time period covered was when?
So when they come, let me clarify that for you.
Okay.
I don't know what time period, but there've been multiple, there's an annual
understand.
inspection, and
I
then
understand.
they can also just surprise come in and do
How
it.
often would you say they've been in the facility on Forest Park Avenue in St. Louis in the last year?
This calendar year, I think they had one in January.
How about in 2013?
I believe there have been 5 inspections within the last 14 or 15 months.
Yeah, I'd
And all of
appreciate having
them, yeah, mhm.
a copy of particularly the things that were inspected during the time period of October of 2013. And then I'd like to see a copy of an inspection that was done if they do that at
Sure.
the facility in Columbia.
Sure, so the October 2013, there were a few instances that were documented and a correction plan was developed between the Department of Health.
I'd just like to see the report. Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Thank you, Representative Neely. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your testimony. And is there someone who would like to testify in favor?
My name is Amanda Durbin. I'm from Northeast Missouri, and I'm really excited about this bill for the reasons that in November of 2010, some laws in Missouri were passed requiring certain information be given to the girls prior to an abortion. Important things like options as far as adoption, or where they could find resources at other pregnancy centers that might help them if they decided to keep their baby. There were several important things that were passed in that law, and just having talked to several girls that had been through the Columbia Planned Parenthood, I did not feel like these laws had been enforced. So I went in late November in 2010 as a potential abortion patient in the Columbia Planned Parenthood. And it was simply to see or validate whether or not they were in compliance with these important laws that were a matter of life and death. And what I found was it was unacceptable in the opinion of a Missouri citizen. And one of the first things that they did was handed me, I want to call an intake packet, paperwork to fill out before I would be seen. And in that paperwork, it listed those things that were in that law, it wanted me to check, yeah, I have been given information about options such as adoption. There were several things to check, and at the end, and it said by your healthcare provider here, which that day there was a nurse practitioner that would be seeing me. And at the bottom, you were supposed to sign it after you've received that information. And so I thought, well, that must be something I fill out after I'm seen. So when I took my paperwork back up to the desk, like the other 12 young ladies that were in the lobby ahead of me had done, I turned my paperwork in and they pushed it back to me and said, you need to sign this form. And I said, but I haven't received any of that yet. And they said, you'll either sign it or not be served here. And after they said that, they also informed me that I was not to speak to any of the people that were outside of Planned Parenthood, which were people that were there to just simply provide you in the direction of resources for other options. And they said that in a manner that was very intimidating, and I can tell you I was the oldest patient in the lobby that day. And for me to be intimidated by that and feel like they were not going to serve me if I talked to those people, I'm sure that that's how it came across to the other dozen women that were in there. Another thing that happened, I went back with the provider that was a nurse practitioner. On my paperwork, it showed that I would have been 8 weeks along in my pregnancy. I asked her, will I have to listen to the heartbeat? And she said there is no heartbeat at 8 weeks. And she said for those people who say there is, it is digestive noises, etc. And I said, well, good, that's what I thought too. And we went on. And I was not pregnant, but I did learn, that there are a lot of laws that get passed, but there's not a lot of accountability or follow-up that happens. And there were several babies lost that day.
I'm sorry to have to inform your time has
Okay.
expired at this point, but perhaps with any questions from the committee, we will be able to continue testimony. Yes, Representative Hodges, proceed.
Yeah, Amanda, you're making this testimony based on personal experience. You're not representing a group of any kind.
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Do any other members of the committee have any questions?
Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you very much for your testimony, and please fill out a witness form. And now someone in opposition.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Crystal Williams. I'm here representing the American Civil Liberties Union this evening of Missouri. And I have a couple of points that I wanted to run through in terms of looking directly at the bill. We are opposing House Bill 1846 because I have to put my glasses on because I'm old, sorry. We're opposing the bill because it leaves a minor seeking abortion with nowhere to turn for help. It likely violates the First Amendment, which of course is something you know ACLU would be concerned about. Preventing a clinic volunteer from talking with a friend, and I'm stressing to a volunteer also. Talking with a friend or family member, even if doing so in a personal capacity. There's language in the bill, quote, no agent or employee of an abortion facility shall advise or refer a woman to go to a location outside of the state of Missouri. So if you're talking to someone, even if it's outside of the clinic capacity, the way the language is written, it could be interpreted as being able to suppress that speech. The bill also creates criminal liability, could conceivably create a criminal liability for grandmothers, aunts, sisters, family members to whom a teen may turn for help. And part of that, also within that, is the dual parent notification. We've talked about this before, I won't go over that because we've talked about this in front of this committee this session. But we do think that that is possibly dangerous for a young woman who may not have that option within her family dynamic. The last thing I'd just like to say is that for a frightened, vulnerable teen to have no place to turn and possibly do harm to themselves would risk their health and well-being. And I'm talking specifically about the young woman who's carrying a pregnancy. Thank you. I was under.
You did very well. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And in favor?
Hello. My name is Brian Westbrook, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Coalition for Life in St. Louis, Missouri. And my group counsels women on the sidewalks in front of the Forest Park abortion facility 6 days a week. And so a lot of the photographs and the dates that you see as far as the ambulances showing up are from my group, from documenting those specific occurrences that come. Any questions about those, I can certainly answer those. Also, I wanted to point out from a previous person who witnessed that the Guttmacher Institute is specifically a Planned Parenthood arm, and so she talked about it being the safest procedure and based on the Guttmacher Institute. Well, that's based on Planned Parenthood's own organization, so that's an internal thing. Also, I wanted to speak to why is it that Columbia is referring to Kansas? And it's because it's the same organization. So there's two different affiliates in the state of Missouri. There's St. Louis and Southwestern region. I'm not quite sure of the exact naming. So there's the St. Louis, and then there's the Kansas side. Columbia is part of the Kansas. And so we actually see a lot of girls come all the way from Joplin, Missouri to St. Louis's Forest Park location as young as 14 years old, some of these girls, because they're part of the St. Louis affiliate. So that would probably be the main reason that they would send them over to Kansas, not necessarily location, but because of the fact that it's the same affiliate. Also, I wanted to speak to the prosecution of this law as far as the internal, the actual city of St. Louis, or where the girl lives, so any of the counties around the state. I personally was out on the sidewalk in front of the Forest Park location a year and a half ago, and myself and also, thank you, a woman named Rita Sparrow, one of our volunteers, and I was prosecuted for false advertising. And we went to the city of St. Louis, and they continued the prosecution, and it wasn't until we hit the appeal process that it was actually thrown out of court. Rita, on the other hand, was actually given summons to court for littering. And this was by the city of St. Louis, accusing her of littering, and she was putting a sign, placing a sign on the ground. And so that went through the city of St. Louis. She was found guilty of that, and then we appealed it and was able to be thrown out in the appeal. So I speak heavily in favor of the law, and also in favor specifically about that portion, about prosecution in a different county.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Is there any further witness in opposition? Seeing none, another witness in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Fort, and I'm here as a private citizen. I am one of those people who pray outside of the abortion clinic in Columbia, where up until currently the last 23 months, they haven't done any abortions, but before that, 800 babies lost their lives at Columbia Planned Parenthood. In the beginning, when I first started praying, not many women chose to keep their baby. Most of them went through with the abortion. There were very few who changed their mind as they were checked into the Columbia Planned Parenthood by an off-duty Columbia policeman in full uniform, the gun, the taser, everything, who would confiscate their cell phones as they went into the building for the appointment. They also paid, at that time they didn't pay anything, but that's coming later. When the informed consent law and the 24-hour waiting period was passed in 2010, I saw a huge difference. I saw that 1 out of 3 women chose to keep their baby, even though they had paid some money for this procedure ahead of time. There is a booklet that was given to the women. This booklet here, and it's given out by the Department of Health and Senior Services. At the very beginning it says, "The life of each human being begins at conception. Abortion will terminate the life of a separate, unique, living human being." Very first thing that the young woman would read. Then she would have 10 pages on fetal development. Then there would be a description of the different types of abortions and with the immediate and long-term risks involved. Then there's something on fetal pain, which is outdated, by the way. Then there's something about paternity rights. Then there's something about child support services. And then alternatives to abortion programs. All of this information was given to the women to go home and reflect. And what was very interesting is, when they reflected, they did not, 1 out of 3 did not come back for the abortion. In 2012, 3,796 Missouri women went to Kansas for an abortion, and they did not receive this information regarding the many resources. This means that if 1/3 of those women would have had the opportunity that Missouri women receive now, 1,265 women would be holding their babies right now. I believe that all Missouri women deserve to know all their options, whether they choose to seek an abortion in Missouri or out of state. And one thing that
Your time has expired, however, I have a question.
Yes,
Do you have any other important points that you would like to?
I do. The women who come there and they are told that they are pregnant, they are in there at least 2 hours. And we know that other women who have regular appointments, they're pushed to the end of the line. They spend anywhere from an hour to 2 hours with these women who are pregnant, and they come out with not much more information except they are referred for an abortion, and I truly believe they're set up for one. They've got one.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Please leave a witness form. At this point, let's see if there's anyone who is here to testify for information purposes only. How many are still here that would like to testify in favor? We welcome you to do that. If you would try to avoid any repetitive testimony, and keep in mind, we do have some other bills to hear today. We do want to hear your testimony. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life. Here to go on record in support of House Bill 1846. I won't repeat a lot of what you've heard. You've heard from me many times. The information in this bill is important. I think the reporting requirements, the referral information that we follow Missouri law. We're not talking about Kansas, we're looking at Missouri. But I think one of the most important parts of this bill is the abortion clinic inspection bill. Because of a lot of the things that you've heard, a lot of the things that are going on in these clinics, and we've had difficulties. I mean, there's a discrepancy in what we've been able to get as far as inspection reports go and what Planned Parenthood tells you that their clinic has been inspected. When we requested from the Department of Health a listing and information showing what the reports were and what was happening with the inspections, what we were told is there was an inspection in from the Department of Health. There was an inspection in 2009. There was none in 2010. There was a phone call inspection in 2011. There was none in 2012. There was an inspection in January of 2013, a follow-up in March of 2013, and then an inspection in January of 2014. If the inspections are happening, that's not being given to those who requested through the Sunshine Law. And so I think there is a need to follow up with the abortion clinic inspections and find out just exactly that Planned Parenthood and those who are offering abortion services are doing exactly what they are supposed to be doing by the law.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri, to go on record in support of House Bill 1846. And I want to focus in on one aspect of the bill which Representative Cox has in common with Representative Swan's bill that you heard a couple of weeks ago, and that is the requirement that there be some inspections every year. This bill's at least once a year. That bill's 4 times a year. And I would just mention, I'll leave this with all this I'm going to provide you, Mr. Chairman. I would just mention that just last week, the lawyer who defended Kermit Gosnell, Dr. Gosnell, said in a forum that he believes that the abortion provider convicted of killing babies who were born alive said he thinks regular inspections at the client's Philadelphia clinic would have kept him from going so far astray. I can't think of a better endorsement than the man who defended this heinous criminal that we should have regular inspections. But I would say whether it's once a year or 4 times a year, I do have a concern and just sort of a reflection about these bills and some of the other bills that have been presented to you about providing protection for women in these clinics. Is you can have all the inspections in the world, you can have them every month if you want, but if there's not the ability of the department, and I'm not criticizing the department when they go in, if they don't have the ability to get the information, if they're not being provided that information, then I'm not sure how the number of inspections is the most important thing. And I would suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, to the committee, as you look at these bills and now and in the future as you craft legislation, to consider a provision that would provide whistleblower protection for employees of the clinic who could report to the Department of Health and Senior Services, or could report to the Board of Registration for the Healing Arts, or to the Nursing Board. And I would point out especially that the Kermit Gosnell, going back to him, that the state of Pennsylvania relied heavily on a clinic whistleblower. I'll leave this CBS report here. A whistleblower worker testifying in the murder trial of a Philadelphia abortion provider says Thursday that she saw more than 14 babies born alive at the clinic, and describes this former employee who had made complaints early on, but had fear and didn't even give her own name. Likewise, just in July of last year, 2 nurses at a Delaware Planned Parenthood abortion clinic, they quit their jobs because they were concerned about losing their medical license. And they were whistleblowers too. And they went to the proper officials, and this local ABC news report talks about how they complained about unsanitary conditions. These are people who had actual information, people who worked there. And I would suggest this just as other types of whistleblower laws that are out there. We have in Missouri whistleblower protection for employees of nursing homes, as an example. If there are abuses in a nursing home, patients are being taken care of, they should not be subject to retaliation by going to the proper officials. There was a Planned Parenthood in Texas just last year where one of their former employees complained about Medicaid fraud. And they just, the Planned Parenthood just settled with the Texas Attorney General's office.
It is my duty to inform you now, your time has expired, but thank you for your testimony. And is there any question from the committee? Yes, proceed.
And I think probably my question is more of a legal nature. Missouri's whistleblower law, I believe, applies to all employees. Am I not correct? Like, we've had cases from enterprise leasing. I had a question once about a dental issue, and I was told that an employee would be covered under whistleblower if they decided to reveal their concerns. And so would that not apply in this case?
Yeah, well, it may or may not. I don't know the exact wording. I will say that what some states have done, Illinois is an example, and the state of Vermont is an example, they have passed laws specifically to protect employees in the healthcare profession, or even subsets of that. And anywhere where a state has had some sort of problem in an industry, states have considered passing laws to say, as I said here in Missouri, specifically for nursing home employees. And if we're having 25, 26 ambulance calls, and if we're having concerns with the abortion industry in general, and specifically here in Missouri, and I haven't even gone to all of the other abortion doctors in years past who have been convicted of income tax evasion here in Missouri or have lost their licenses. But in many cases, it was the employee in those clinics who, fearing for their own job safety, who went ahead and revealed that. And I can't tell you exactly if Missouri's law is robust or not, enough or not, but it should be in this particular area.
No, I agree across all areas. Thank you.
And I'll leave that with you, Mr. Chairman, this report of the IRS investigation years ago of 2 abortion doctors here in Missouri, and happy to provide any more information to you.
Very good testimony, thank you very much. And I just also want to comment to the committee and those in attendance today that we realize that this is an emotionally charged, difficult topic, but I think it's a good testimony to the decorum of this committee that we have a young man in the back who is sleeping soundly.
Mr. Chairman, this is not mine, but I'm going to leave a witness form from Tyler McClay with Missouri Catholic Conference. He couldn't be here this evening. Thank you very much.
The next witness in favor.
Mr. Chairman. For the record, Kerry Messer with Missouri Family Network in support of 1846. First thing I would say in my 3-minute time is I am glad that young man's name was not my son's. I was a little concerned, I had to look. But, Mr. Chairman, this is a hot philosophical debate. We all know that both sides of this issue come to the table trying to duke it out on public policy. And I acknowledge what I hear, and that is the abortion side of this debate constantly complains that they're overregulated. I don't know that they're so overregulated when there's no accountability whether they're living up to those regulations. You know, we need these inspections. We need to deal with the heart of this legislation. The mechanics, you know, how we deal with mechanics is another question. We can debate that, get through the perfection policy part of it, and come up with something that works. And that's something that I feel like we really definitely need to do. But this is the interesting thing. On the whistleblower, going to Representative Kirkton's comment, I know that whistleblower doesn't protect everybody because we're all intimately aware of the DOR scandal last year. That scandal was broke not because whistleblowers came to the state, but because whistleblowers had to come through a third party. They came through me because they were scared to death of the reprisals that would come on them for revealing what was going on in the Department of Revenue. And that's the reason why we, a private party, had to come to the legislature with that issue. So I know, while I don't know the jot and tittles of who's covered, who's not covered, if these healthcare workers aren't covered, I know they don't have conscience rights covered, so I don't know where we're at on the whistleblower. That's something we definitely have to take a hard look at. But there are several things that we need to do to guarantee that the policies that we have been passing are actually being employed on a consistent and appropriate basis. This is the only industry where the people are being hurt and we don't even know where the accountability lies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Are there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone who wishes to testify in favor? And there's no one else showed up to testify in opposition. We've covered the opposition, correct? Okay. Yes, proceed.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is